Hi everyone, David Jackson here with slingandstonemarketing.com, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how to choose a web hosting provider for your business. This is the same criteria I use in making my choice, and which recently helped me make the decision to switch from a previous hosting provider. By the end of this video, you'll be armed with the information you need to have the confidence to make an informed decision about the company you choose. But before we get into it, I just want to mention that this is not one of those top 10 web hosting lists where each of the recommendations are affiliate links that earn me a commission from the highest to the lowest payout. Nor is this a video sponsored by any company. No one is paying me for this. These are my own opinions based on my experience and research. At the end of this video, I'll share the web hosting provider that I currently use based off of the criteria which I'm going to walk you through right now. You may decide on a different hosting provider, and that's perfectly fine with me. My main goal here is to provide you with the information you need so you can make an informed decision for yourself. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to talk about is support. If you are watching this video, you are likely a beginner to the whole web hosting and online business industry, and therefore you don't know a lot of the lingo or technical things associated with having a website online. This is why customer support is so important. Something is bound to go wrong at some time or another. You might install a plugin that breaks your site. You might do something that logically would work in your mind, but causes you to bring your website down. I'm a pretty technical person, and I know enough to be dangerous. And that dangerous part has gotten me to where I did something to break my site. So I can't stress enough how important it is to have a hosting company with excellent support. Since you are doing your website for your business, you will likely be making sales, collecting leads, and doing other things that eventually lead to bringing in revenue. And there's nothing worse than having your website break and then needing to wait for hours before getting a response from a support person to deal with your issue. My first recommendation regarding support is to stay away from EIG-owned hosting companies. You can find a link in the description below to the Wikipedia page that has a list of all the different hosting companies that they own. EIG has a horrible reputation for their support and service. You can even do a Google search and find horror stories with dealing with the companies that they own. There are also websites that keep their readers up to date with any new acquisitions that EIG makes. It's just best to stay away from them altogether. A great way to get a feel about a company's tech support is to check social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter. You know that real people will be posting their experiences with the support staff and services. If you find a lot of positive reviews and feedback, you know it's a good company because people are more likely to post when things go wrong compared to taking the time to provide positive feedback when everything is working fine. You could also test support by sending them a couple of questions about their service and or their setup process to test their response time and thoroughness. If that experience isn't all that great as a potential customer, then it won't be any better once you become their customer. Next is to decide what type of hosting you need. If you are just starting out with your business, or if you don't have a lot of traffic already going to your website, then you want to stick with shared hosting for now, unless there are technical reasons for you to use another type of hosting. Shared hosting basically allows the hosting provider to put hundreds of websites onto one server where they all share the same server's resources. Running and maintaining a server is expensive, and by having a bunch of websites on one server, the host provider is able to divide the cost among all the different accounts and limiting resources for each account to keep one account from sucking up all of the resources. Shared hosting usually comes in tiers where the cheapest starter tier gives you the least amount of features and performance. but it's cheap for those who don't have much of a budget to start out. As you move up in tiers, the price increases, but more server resources are given to your account, and you will see an increased speed and performance because you are sharing the server resources with a fewer number of websites. After shared hosting, you move into the VPS or virtual private servers, semi-dedicated servers, and cloud hosting. There are differences between these, but you really wouldn't need to worry about this level unless you are doing a lot of resource-intensive things on your website or get hundreds of thousands of visitors per month. Then after that tier, you would look at a dedicated server where your account is the only one on the server and its resources are pretty much all yours. But again, most businesses, especially if you're starting out, only need shared hosting, and I'll go over what to look for later so you can get the best value for your money. But first, you need to decide what you're going to use your website for. If you want to have an e-commerce store, then you would need to decide if you want to go the hosted route, where the hosting and everything is in a packaged solution, where you simply pay monthly to a company like Shopify or BigCommerce, and there's no need for you to get your own hosting. Or you can go the self-hosted route with using software like WooCommerce, OS Commerce, Magento, and solutions like those. The pros and cons and differences between these solutions are beyond the scope of this video. But if you want an e-commerce store, that's where you would start. Also, you need to think about what tools you will need. If you have a web developer building your website using ASP.NET and the Microsoft SQL database, then you need to make sure to purchase hosting that uses Windows servers and not Linux servers. A simple chat with your web developer will get you going in the right direction, and he might actually have some recommendations for you. Lastly, you need to decide the platform you are going to use if a developer is not doing a custom solution for you. There are hosted solutions where the hosting and web building software is all packaged together. These would be solutions like Wix and Squarespace and other website builders like those. They handle all the hosting, so you don't need to purchase your own, and you use their proprietary software to build your website. But what I recommend is that you go with the self-hosted route and just use WordPress. WordPress is used by more than a quarter of the websites out there. It's free, open source, and it has a lot of support. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and I can't really say that about the other solutions. Okay, so now let's talk about the most important metric when choosing a hosting provider, and that's speed. A study by Akamai shows you can lose 40% of your visitors if your website doesn't load in under 3 seconds. People don't like to wait. And because of this, Google likes to have fast loading websites on their search results page because it enhances the user experience. Whether or not having a slow loading website will negatively affect your rankings is still up for debate. But I wouldn't doubt that it's one of the 200 factors they use when determining your rankings. Either way, it's safe to say that whatever produces a better user experience is what Google wants. And your hosting provider plays a big part in determining how long a person has to wait for your website to load. If you are building a race car, you want to make sure that you start by using a lightweight frame. Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot because you have unnecessary weight from the beginning. So think of the race car frame like your hosting provider. Pick one that provides you with the fastest features, and then all the other optimizations you do afterward will benefit. Here are some of the things you want to look for with shared hosting to make sure you can deliver your web page as fast as possible. First are the hard drives. You want to look for SSD or solid-state storage drives, as they provide faster performance and are more reliable compared to the regular storage drives. Next is to make sure they support HTTP2, which is basically like HTTP 2.0. It's the future of web hosting and allows websites to be loaded much faster for people that are using HTTP2 supported web browsers, which means that as long as people keep their browsers updated, almost everyone that visits your website will have this feature enabled. Another thing is to see if they offer some type of free or discounted CDN service. What a CDN or content delivery network does is basically keep your website content on machines located all over the world, so when someone visits your website, your page can be delivered to them from the closest machine to them in the network, rather than from the main data center. This helps save time depending on how far away they are. And if you know what platform you are going to use, then you want to choose a provider that has servers optimized for that platform. For example, I recommend the WordPress platform, so you would want to choose a provider that has servers optimized for WordPress. Speed increase was one of the things I noticed most when I switched from my old hosting provider. They had servers configured for general shared web hosting, whereas the provider I'm with now has their servers optimized specifically for WordPress. And lastly is the data center location. Some hosting providers have a couple of data centers around the world, and you can choose which data center you want to have your website hosted. You should always choose the data center closest to where your visitors are located. For instance, even though I'm in the USA, if I have a website that caters to people in, let's say, Japan or China, then it would be better for me to have my website located in a data center that is in Asia rather than here in the USA. So let's move on to some of the technical aspects. This is the area where people get taken advantage of the most because they don't know the technical jargon and have no idea of what they are actually purchasing. So I'm going to try and simplify this and tell you about some of the things to watch out for and the double meaning some hosting companies use to confuse you. First, beware of plans that say they give you unlimited features such as storage and bandwidth. There is no way a server with hundreds of accounts on it can support each of them having unlimited resources. What these companies are basically doing is overselling. They know that the average website is not going to use that much space and bandwidth. And for those that do, they'll usually have something hidden in their terms of service to suspend or limit your account for abuse if you go over a certain percentage of the advertised limits. These providers tend to cram a bunch of accounts on one server, causing slow performance and frequent downtime. Plus, these types of plans tend to attract the wrong type of clientele, such as those that want to do malicious things that can get the server blacklisted. A lot of the well-known brand name hosting providers offer unlimited plans, so let this be a huge red flag for you to stay away from them. If you can't get hard numbers to the available server resources, then you'll be in for an unpleasant surprise later. So if you only have one website, 10 to 20 gigabytes of space should be plenty. Your actual website files don't take up a lot of space. It's basically the multimedia files that are generally large. If you have a lot of large images, high definition video, or large audio files, space can be an issue. But you can utilize other websites to store these large files so they won't take up your server space. Sites like YouTube and SoundCloud are basically multimedia storage websites, and you can embed their player into your website. This way, if your website gets a lot of traffic, your server's performance won't suffer because these files are being pulled from those other websites. Another technical thing to look for is if you can have more than one website. A lot of the starter hosting tiers only allow for one website, meaning you can only have one main domain name on it. So if you want to have a business website and a personal blog or just another business website, then you need to make sure you can get a plan that allows for multiple websites. Also, try to get a plan that offers free SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. This easily saves you at least $30 per year because you don't have to buy that separately. Google has definitely made a push in 2017 to have websites be more secure by having their Chrome browser display warnings on sites that are not secure. And you can find arguments as to whether or not this will affect your website's ranking. But again, if having an unsecured website connection is a bad user experience, then I recommend you just get it secured. Now, this secured certificate from Let's Encrypt is pretty basic, but it's enough for the majority of websites out there that are, for the most part, collecting email addresses or have login pages for member areas. If you want to run an e-commerce store, then you'll want to invest in a higher level secured certificate that offers insurance protection. And you'll also want to choose a hosting plan that has PCI compliant servers that offer protection for customers entering their credit card information. So in wrapping up the technical criteria, having one-click installs of popular software programs like WordPress and free website transfers are a plus. As I said before, WordPress is the most popular website platform, so if you are not a technical person, being able to fill in some basic information and clicking the mouse once to install your website is pretty important. And if you currently have a website with another hosting company, a free website transfer will keep you from having to deal with the technical hassles of moving a website from one place to another. Okay, moving on to cost. But first, I want to explain something. While the cost of hosting does play a factor, it's probably the least important thing to consider, which is why I'm covering it last. All the criteria I covered before are things that will impact the amount of revenue your online business will generate. Plus, if you're building a real business, hosting costs should only be a small fraction of your revenue. For example, let's say your website is getting 10,000 visits a month and only 2% of them convert and become customers. And let's say that you make $10 profit off of each customer that you get. Well, 10,000 visits at a 2% conversion rate is 200 customers. And $10 per customer gives you $2,000 profit per month. You can easily get good shared hosting that can handle 10,000 visits per month for less than $10 a month. So in this case, your hosting would only be 0.5% of your total profit. But going for the lowest cost hosting provider means that you'll be sacrificing something. It could be server speed, it could be support, it could be something else where they are cutting corners in order to give you a lower price. Whatever it is, it's always going to cost you more in lost revenue compared to the price difference in better hosting. First, you want to avoid new hosting companies and stick with those that have been around for a while and have a long track record. Just about anyone can put up a web hosting site, but they won't have the support staff to handle server issues when they come up. And if you remember from earlier, good support is an important thing to have. Next is to make sure you know how much your chosen plan costs. Many providers will have introductory pricing for new accounts where you pay the advertised price for your initial purchase only. These introductory prices could be anywhere from 50 to 75% off their regular price. So you want to make sure to look at how much the regular or the renewal price is and decide if you are comfortable with paying that. Also, providers will have something called term pricing. You'll see this with prices that say something like starting at or as low as. This means that if you want to get their lowest price, then you probably have to pay upfront for 3 years of hosting. After that, it goes to the regular or the renewal price. And lastly, before signing up for any hosting, make sure you read over their cancellation and refund policy. You may change your mind or certain circumstances may arise where you need to cancel the service. So if you read their policy, you'll know if you can get a full or partial refund, or that you just won't get a refund at all after a certain period of time. Okay, so we've gone through the criteria I use to choose a hosting provider. But if you're still not sure which one to go with, then here's my recommendation. I use SiteGround. Their customer support is outstanding, and they respond to their support tickets in about 10 minutes, which is the fastest in the industry. And if you need help sooner than that, you can chat live or give them a call for an instant response. Also, if you take a look at their blog, you'll see that they actually highlight customer service reps, showing that they really put a high value in service. You could do a search on social media and see the things people are saying about them, but they recently did a survey of their customers and found that they have a 97% satisfaction rate, which is up from the 96% that they had the year before. And well, nobody's perfect, but they are also recommended by WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal, which are the top 3 content management platforms. Then also when it comes to speed, as I mentioned before, I noticed a huge improvement when I switched from my previous hosting provider. And this is because SiteGround servers are optimized for WordPress, and they use things like SSD storage drives, HTTP2 enabled servers, and they also give you a free Cloudflare CDN account. So from my research of the different hosting companies, I found SiteGround to give the most value for your money, which is why I chose them. If you want to take a look at their pricing and features, I'll put a link in the description below. I hope this video was helpful for you, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up, as it will give me an opportunity to get the word out and to help others. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe right now. Just click on the subscribe button and you're all set. Now, my question for you is, which hosting provider are you going to choose? Are you going to go with SiteGround or another hosting provider? Let me know by leaving a comment below. I thank you for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, go out and slay some giants.